Uhuru.
Uhuru.
Uhuru, comrade, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing good as well. You doing good, looking good. Eyeshadow back at it again. Listen, I gotta step up my game, comrade.
Thank you, comrade. Thank
Of
you, thank
course,
you, thank you.
Uhuru, comrades, come on in. Let us know where you tuning in from. Y'all already know the drill.
It's Monday. You know what time it is. Come on in. Come on in. It is that time of the week, y'all. One Africa Worldview podcast right here. It is Monday, 3 p.m. Eastern. Come on in. Come on in. We see you. Go ahead and subscribe. Tell the people that we are on and we have a show. As always, we have one for you today. So, this, like
Right?
we like to see here. Come on in. Come on in.
Come on in. Like the comrade said. We got, and I know y'all have seen the thumbnail already. So we got a great guest for y'all. We always get amazing guests on the show. First time appearance of the guests that you see on our thumbnail. So definitely stick around for the main objective of today's episode because I'm personally looking forward to it. Just saying. Um, yeah. Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
We see you coming on in. Tell everyone it's that time of the week. One Africa Worldview podcast. Come on in. Come on in, y'all.
Yep. 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 Comment to Huru and say Huru, I am this and this, and I'm tuning in from this place. And then
Like,
hit that little
yeah,
share button and
yeah.
invite your moms and your sisters and your daddies and your pappies.
All,
Do
all of
it. All of
them. Tell all of them.
them.
We're
All
here.
right. You're ready to start the show. I'm
Let's
ready.
do it.
Uhuru. Uhuru and welcome back. I am Soliana, your managing editor for the Burning Spear newspaper, which is the longest running Black Power newspaper.
You heard. I'm Dr. Mariah, promotions coordinator for Black Power 96.3 FM out of St. Petersburg, Florida, but available worldwide through the Black Power 96 mobile app, y'all. And our show actually airs on Black Power 96 every Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern.
That is right. And this is none other than the One African Worldview podcast, the show that brings much needed African internationalist analysis on news and world events, plus dynamic discussions and presentations from anti colonial organizers and experts across the globe, as this episode will show. And of course, a two what end to our struggle against colonialism with real time ways on how to engage and get involved. For today's show, we start with our Whirlwind Weekly update, a look at the day's top headlines, and we head into our primary objective, which is an exclusive interview with Tafarie Mugeri, Director of Organization for the party's Africa region. And he's going to be discussing the significance of African Martyrs Day and what the Uhuru movement is doing on the continent to complete the African Revolution.
Oh, wow. And after all that, y'all, we still have more show for you because we'll dive right into our further culture segment to where we're talking this week about the wild ride that we know and have seen as America's Next Top Model documentary over there on Netflix. And so stay tuned right here with us because we have a full hour for y'all today. And remember that the One Africa Worldview podcast is part of the regular programming of Black Power 96.3 FM radio, and we are actually helping to raise funds for Black Power 96 annual February member fund drive. And what better way to celebrate our Black history this month, y'all, than by contributing to the station that uplifts Black voices, lift our voices. And you can help us reach that $1,000 show goal today by donating to blackpower96.org/Africa. That's blackpower96.org/Africa. And you can also scan the code that's right here on the screen here.
That's right. Thank you so much for that. As you can see, February's not over yet, so you definitely have time to go ahead and help out the station. And thanks to you all, we have raised $595 of that goal, and we only have $405 remaining. And then remember, of course, that all of our donations receive a thank you and give back, and you can make a one-time donation or become a monthly sustainer at $5, $10, or at whatever level suits your budget. And we, of course, thank all of you who made a contribution during last week's show, making it possible to keep Black Power 96 on the air. This station really is just another way that we're able to bring African internationalism, the theory for Black liberation, out to the people without concern of colonial censorship. So with that, let's go ahead and dive into our Whirlwind Weekly Update. Comrade Mariah, please kick us off on the latest with U.S. aggression against Iran.
Yeah. Well, when it comes to the U.S. has massed its military forces around Iran that have not been that large since the invasion of Iraq in 2003. So, more than 50 fighter jets, heavy bombers, aircraft carriers, and flying tankers are in the area. Threats of starting open war against Iran escalated this past week, actually, when Donald Trump threatening that the United States would strike Iran on Saturday. So, the USS Abraham Lincoln aircraft carrier has been positioned near Iran since 2024. So, the USS Gerald Ford aircraft carrier was sent from the Caribbean waters early in February. And as of Saturday, the aircraft carrier has crossed the Strait of Gibraltar. The U.S. has delayed the attack until Monday or Tuesday. Several explanations for the delay are circulating around now, but the U.S.'s main target is the leader of Iran. And the U.S. has failed to actually locate him. And the people of Iran, loyal to the revolution, confronted Iranian monarchist at the University of Tehran. Tucker Carlson's interview with Mike Huckabee exposed that the United States government doesn't care about the people in North America. So on Saturday, there were reports that the Zionist entity is threatening Tucker Carlson's family, actually. And the head of the Zionist entity announced a new alliance of India, Greece, Cyprus, African states, Arab states, and the Asian states against the axis of resistance. And on Sunday, we saw the U.S. threaten to target unless Iran gives a detailed proposal for a nuclear agreement within the next 48 hours. And analysts are saying that the war with Iran will result in the closing of the Strait of Hormuz and will bring the global economy to a halt. So now, with all that going on, Comrade Aiyana, you have some more news here about regarding the neo-colonial government of Kenya drafting Africans to fight in Ukraine, right?
Yes, that's right. So we've heard news that about 1,000 Africans from Kenya were sent to the front lines of the Russia-Ukraine war that has now entered its fourth year in terms of active battle, but has spanned over a decade with the US EU-backed overthrow of the Ukrainian government back in 2014. Now we see Africans being dragged into this with actors within the Russian and Kenyan government promising people, Russian citizenship as well as a monthly salary up to 350,000 Kenyan shillings, which is about $2,400, with bonuses ranging from 900,000 to 1.2 million shillings, which is about 6,200 to 8,300 US dollars. Now, this is happening in conjunction with the neo-colonial government of Kenya deploying police into Haiti. Further evidence of the colonizers using African people to carry out their own objectives. Opposition Member of Parliament Joseph Makilap of the Kenyan parliament raises this in the National Assembly proceedings and says that the government needs to, quote, protect the sovereignty of the country, the people of Kenya, from being butchered and murdered in areas that they do not know, unquote. He also jokingly says that even bandits get more training than the Africans in Kenya are, they are being sent to the front lines of a foreign war. And we can go ahead and watch that clip.
That we are so vulnerable to an extent that we are not able to manage this particular customer Jew thing. The DCI now and the NIS need to go with swift to interrogate all these agencies that pretend to take labor outside this country. it is now upon our government to loop back the same Kenyans who went to fight Ukrainians to come back and work in Kulalu farms, to work in Takwel farms, create opportunities for them so that they can work in their country. So, Speaker, to an extent where they go through Uganda or South Africa because of desperation of jobs that are not known is a serious matter. I also take this opportunity to call out parents and community leaders, the Nyumbagumi. If a parent does not see his son for 2-3 weeks, does not come home, or says he wants to go to Kasimaju, ask yourself, where is your son going? Because this is a serious matter that we must begin from parents to government to agencies that do investigation so that we can protect the sovereignty of this country, the people of Kenya, being butchered or murdered in areas that they do not know.
Thank you.
Even receiving training for 3 weeks, Mr. Speaker, even bandits receive training for more than 2 years. These ones receive training for 3 weeks and they know how to draw bombs.
Is that from your experience? Yes, majority leader.
Right. So despite, the humor and, the speaker saying, like, are you speaking from experience, right? This is a serious matter. Families all across Kenya are losing sons and brothers to this war, and they're hearing news of their deaths like months later. There's a particular family that heard about their son who died back in August. They'd heard about it in January, right? People don't talk about just how serious this is. And the recruitment itself is such a blatant exploitation of African people because, it recruits those that are looking for work and need ways to support themselves and their families, right? But we know that this isn't new. Africans have historically been the cannon fodder for imperialist wars. We don't talk enough about just how crucial the colonial territories in Africa were for the war efforts of the imperialists during all these wars. For example, in the Second Imperialist War, or World War II, we had more than 1 million Africans that were forced to fight for their colonial overlords, right? Particularly Britain and France. We also know that for the Allied powers to even win the war and drop the atomic bombs that they did on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the Congo had to be exploited for its uranium. We know that, Africans in the US have also had to fight these wars going as far back as the Revolutionary War in the 1700s, right? The first martyr of this revolution was actually an African, right? Crispus Attucks at the Boston Massacre. So Africans, being forced to be in the front lines of wars that don't contribute to our freedom has always been a tactic of colonialism. And under this colonial mode of production, African lives are seen as disposable. We're seeing it live right now. So colonialism creates a situation where Africa isn't able to be sovereign and self-determined enough to provide the necessities for our own population, making us dependent. Right. And then because of that dependence, the human and material extraction of our people is perpetuated. The only way for our people to know independence, of course, is through the African Revolution, right? The neo-colonial government is prostituting the people for the promises offered by Russia, who may be contending for power from the US, but is really not interested in the liberation of African people, right? And so far, NPR has reported that out of the 1,000 that are currently in Ukraine, 89 Kenyans remain on the front line, 39 have been hospitalized, and 28 are just missing in action that we don't even know what's going on with their status. So we'll, of course, update you as we hear more about this. But speaking of the rights of Africans being attacked, Comrade Mariah, I know you have news around the temporary protected status that's impacting Haitians.
Yeah, since the actual deployment of ICE agents that we've all heard about and seeing everywhere here, National Guard, even all across the United States, it's just African, Mexican, indigenous people, just all other colonized people have been just the target of all this and this brutal treatment and attacks by the state. And so much so that many have actually begun to fear even leaving their homes at this time. And while all this is happening in the streets, the United States government is also waging a legal battle in order to make it harder for African people, specifically Haitians, when it comes to that. Ethiopians and Somalians to stay inside the country or even come to the country in the first place by attempting to terminate the temporary protected status designation. And this TPS is essentially, it's a kind of government protection that really allows the people to stay in the country, and if they can prove that they cannot return to their country. So the definition or the quote will say is, quote, due to conditions or circumstances preventing their country from adequately handling the return, and that's unquote. So this can mean anything like war, environmental disasters, or epidemics, even anything like that does qualify. So this termination of TPS, of course, was directly targeting Haitians this time and other African people. So just like Trump's travel ban in the first term mostly impacted people from the Arab world, he's been flexing his muscles as usual and wanting to strip the rights of colonized people when it comes to just kicking them out of the country. And for a while now, we're just not seeing the concerted effort for it now in this second term. So a lot of the times, the administration deports people to countries that they're not even from, y'all. And by this fact alone, we see that it directly shuts down any talks about ICE not being a black issue. So, I mean, we've seen what looks like an entire army at a time at the front door of this African woman's house over in Minneapolis. And if you haven't seen that insane photo, here it is on the screen here. We have it up here so you can see it if you are watching with us now. And it's like a platoon of soldiers you can see here. And they're here with all these guns, tasers, and just manners of terrible weapons. And right in front of this woman's home, this African woman's home, who's wearing her scrubs, y'all, standing in complete shock to this spectacle right in front of her house. So this is a problem, the very much the same thing, a problem that we're seeing impacting all black people, y'all. And we understand this is forcible removal. This forcible removal is impacting Haitians and Mexicans and indigenous people now. And it's a problem. It's this problem of colonialism. And as we recently said in our last show, it's an anxiety ridden reaction to what's happening. And it's the fear of whitelessness happening, whitelessness, y'all, and a fear of this moribund colonial system failing. And that's just them grasping at straws at this point and just overtly employing all the tactics that they can to keep on administering the oppression and trying to hold on to the control. And as of right now, the single district court has actually blocked Trump in his attempt to fully terminate this TPS for Haitians. But the Department of Homeland Security is, of course, working around the clock to make sure this happens. So we'll update you, of course, right here as that unfolds, and you will hear more about it.
Yes, thank you so much, Carmen Mariah. That is it for this week's Whirlwind Weekly Update. Let us know in the comments some newsworthy topics that you'd like us to cover in future episodes and give it that much needed African internationalist touch, right? So make sure to drop that in the comments and we'll follow up. But with that, it's time to head into our primary objective, carrying the torch of our African martyrs. This is an exclusive interview with Tafarie Mugeri, Director of Organization for the party's Africa region. He sat down with our very own Akile to discuss the significance of African Martyrs Day and to talk about the work to build the Africa Front of the African Revolution. There's just so many exciting new updates, so let's go ahead and take a look.
Uhuru, comrades, my name is Akile Anai. I'm the director of Burning Spear Media and for the African People's Socialist Party, and I am joined here today in this exclusive interview with Tafarie Mugeri, who is the director of organization for the African People's Socialist Party's Africa region. And comrade Director Tafarie is based out of occupied Azania, or other known as the settler colony of South Africa. So really want to salute and appreciate you, Director Tafarie, for joining us today. As we, take this time of our program to commemorate African and recognize African Martyrs Day. It is a day formally recognized by the African People's Socialist Party on February 21st, which is the anniversary of the assassination of Brother Malcolm X. And, for our party, African Martyrs Day is, more than just a day for recognition of those who have fought bravely for the pursuit of our freedom and liberation as African people. But it is also our time to recommit to the struggle that these comrades, these brothers and sisters before us, have established. We want to complete the mission. And so that's some of the things that we'll be talking about with Director Tafarie today, as well as some exciting development work happening on the African continent. So without further ado, let's just jump right into this introduction, into this interview. And thank you so much, Director Tafarie, for being a part of the One Africa Worldview podcast. with us today. And first and foremost, just want to tell our listeners and viewers, what is your role in the African People's Socialist Party, and how did you first learn about the Uhuru Movement?
Uhuru, Director Akile, firstly, I want to salute you and express my appreciation for your invitation and having me here on this program. Yes, I am Tafarie Mugeri, based in occupied Azania, and I am the Director of Organization for the African Socialist International, which is the African People's Socialist Party, throughout the world. Here in Africa specifically, that's my role. My role is to ensure that we build the infrastructure and of the African People's Socialist Party throughout the Africa continent, and also expand the membership and ensure that the mandates of the African People's Socialist Party, are carried throughout the Africa continent. Creating the platform for new people to come through, and helping them to establish where they are, and ensuring the growth of the African People's Socialist Party and the African Revolution here on the Africa, region, on the Africa continent. Yeah, Horo.
Uhuru, comrade. And I also wanted to just dive in a little bit about, your history with the Uhuru Movement. And maybe you can tell us too about your first time meeting Chairman Omali Yeshitela.
Yes, I get what do people say, they call them what, goosebumps. When you talk about that, because it was exciting meeting Chairman Omali Yeshitela in 2018. But I was introduced to the Uhuru Movement in 2013. I was 20 years old then, 2013. That was like what, 13 years ago? Yeah, it was a while ago, So, and I was at university in Johannesburg. So, when you get to university, you get to meet new ideas. You get exposed to a whole variety of things, and you begin to question the world as it is, because you meet people that are there to, with the assumption that they are supposed to be thinkers. Then you begin to question things, because something that's not really popularized in the townships where we grew up. In the townships, usually you just grow up there, accept the norm, and then you try to get a job if you can get a job and see how you survive. But when you get to university, now you given the impression that now you are allowed to think. So when we got there, we questioned a lot of things. We wanted to understand more about the African national identity, the question of the township and the whole entire social system. So there's a lot of perspectives, ideas that we got exposed to, including Pan-Africanist, Afro-pessimism, Marxism, all sorts of ideas that we were introduced to, including organizations such as the African National Congress here in South Africa, the Economic Freedom Fighters. Actually, when I was in university, I was with the comrades of the Economic Freedom Fighters, those members, when they were fighting for the organization to be registered there, because it was introduced. The organization was born when I was there in university, and it was supposed to be the radical, the radical organization amongst the, petty bourgeois, social class, and we were supposed to be part of that. But then we were not satisfied with that, because we from the townships, we want something that can speak directly to the interest of the African working class. And when we got in 2013, when I got introduced to the Chairman Omali Yeshitela by Comrade Asa and Pooh, right around the time that he discovered the chairman through another comrade over there. I feel a bit embarrassed that I forgot his name, because it was a long time ago, but he did a noble thing by introducing us to the Uhuru Movement. And then since from then, we thought Pan-Africanism was everything. And just me to the party was how the party always defends the African working class. Because most organizations do condemn the class and call African workers lazy, drunkards, and all sorts of things. But then, or blame the African working class for our condition or for the people's condition instead of blaming the system. So this, persistence and insisting that it is the system that's responsible for all this misery that our people experience. That was something that I saw that stood out, and I wanted to join the party. And the practicality, we walk the talk, the institutions and on the ground, and the history of the Chairman Omali Yeshitela, just all of that for me was like, there's nothing that can compare to this. And I was not talking from a place of lack of exposure. I was already exposed to all sorts of organizations out there, all sorts of figures, theories, and whatever. But this stood out to be the best of what Africa has.
Uhuru. Wow, that is such a profound origin story into the African People's Socialist Party. And I appreciate you saying that you had already been exposed to, different political philosophy and ideology. And it was African internationalism and the leadership of the chairman, that was just very obviously, clearly distinguished. And I also really appreciate you raising the fact that the party really puts forward and asserts the leadership of the African working class. And I think, that is a fundamental distinction, of our party from the other organizations that exist out there. And just kind of transitioning here a little bit, but we are, talking about walking the talk. And so that's, part of what this discussion is about. So we want to talk about African Martyrs Day and its significance. So, from based off of, your understanding and, position in organizing, the African continent, under the direction of the African People's Socialist Party, can you talk about the significance of African Martyrs Day?
Yeah, Uhuru, thank you. If I'm not mistaken, the African Martyrs Day was declared by the African People's Socialist Party in 1981, right? And it is really designated for the day of the 21st of February in commemoration, to the assassination of Malcolm X, and how he was murdered, and the whole murder was engineered and orchestrated by imperialism, a system that he committed his life to fighting against and to see his to see its destruction. And so the party saw it befitting that this day where Malcolm X was murdered to represent this the murder of all African people that die under the system, especially fighting against the system. So it's important because for we are revolutionaries, and all African people should be revolutionaries. Why? Because the system that oppresses us needs to be transformed. It needs to be destroyed. So if we want freedom, which is, I believe, every African person desires freedom, so we should fight for that freedom. And when you fight for the freedom, you accept, that there's a consequence for the system, and there could be a consequence for you as a revolutionary. And I think people like Malcolm X were clear about that, and other African martyrs like Patrice Lumumba, who was brutally murdered as well, and people like Steve Biko, who was brutally murdered, and other people who fought the struggle, like Huey P. Newton and Kwame Nkrumah, and Harriet Tubman. We recently lost Asata Shaku, who was exiled for many years. So we have African martyrs everywhere, but I know that in the African People's Socialist Party, through African internationalism, we have stated that every African person that dies under this system is a martyr, one way or another. But then, yes, we do want to recognize those that stood out and were conscious about, resisting this system. And the reason is significant is because we are sending a message to our people and also to the system to say that, you murdered Malcolm X and murdered Patrice Lumumba because you wanted to crush the African Revolution, to destroy it. It was a counterinsurgent, response to our desire to be free. And we're saying that just because you killed all those people doesn't mean that, the whole project of the liberation of African people has been destroyed as well. And that's just like, who's this? Steve Biko said that you can kill a revolutionary, but then you cannot kill the revolutionary ideas that revolutionary had. I think Fred Hampton also had a similar statement that he made, and even Thomas Sankara, who is another African martyr, murdered in 1987, he said that you can kill Sankara today, and tomorrow there will be 20 Sankaras born. And the Sankaras are born every single day. They just have to be exposed to this, the African People's Socialist Party, the Uhuru Movement, the African Revolution, and then they discover their historical mission, and then they carry it boldly. And that's why 24/7 imperialism makes sure that we, people don't get exposed to this. Like, as soon as this is broadcasted out there on our Burning Spear TV or whatever, they will make sure that not enough people get access to this. That's why we have to share it everywhere, because they know that if enough people get this message, then it was pointless and actually made things worse, killing Malcolm X and all the African martyrs. So we have to uphold them and use them as an example, to carry the mission. Uhuru.
Uhuru, right on, absolutely, comrade. And I know we can say so much, and there's so we can't even say all the names, obviously, because we're talking about all Africans, murdered under the system. Which I think is so important too, because when we talk about the consequences of, the potential consequences of fighting for our liberation, the fact is, under colonialism, we face the consequences whether we fight or not. We face the consequences of a colonial mode of production, and so we ought to go out struggling on our feet, fighting and doing everything in our power to destroy this social system. And I think it's also really important, because we often hear, especially from like the those radicals are like, are you willing to die for the revolution? But are you willing to live, to complete the revolution?
Exactly.
And
Right.
and so that's what we're in the process of doing. And I think of, obviously, our leadership, Chairman Omali Yeshitela, that has survived countless attempts on his life, constant attempts to imprison him, including a recent attempt in recent years with the U.S. government, assault on our movement, that we've been battling and still dealing with today. And the fact that they tried to imprison 84 year old Chairman Omali Yeshitela, who is continues on the front lines. And so when we talk about carrying the struggle forward, not relenting, not being in fear of what it is that this social system could do, what it does to us on a regular basis. Because Aiyana Stanley-Jones didn't have an opportunity to, even come into political life before she was killed in her bed, 9-year-old, child. So Tamir Rice, Mike Brown, and, countless others. We covered in our last week's episode, the Seboken 14, these African children in South Africa, and these are the potential revolutionary forces, right? So that's why what we do is really important, in going out there and organizing African workers, into the African revolution. And that is our best defense also, to the colonial state and the atrocities that this system carries out against our people who are just struggling to be free. So we've said many times already in this discussion that, for our party, African Martyrs Day is more than just a day of remembrance, but it is a recommitment for us to the African Revolution. Can you tell us about the work that's being built across the continent towards the advancement of our revolution?
Yes, Uhuru. Yeah, I want to do that, Director Akile. But firstly, I want to say that the African People's Socialist Party is always ahead. You know, it's always ahead because of approach the question of politics as a whole, our understanding of politics. And, we say politics is concentrated economics. That's what politics is all about. And that's the birth of politics itself in terms of contest for resources and in all, all forms, all sorts of ways. This is born from this original sin of attacking Africa and snatching our resources, colonialism, colonial slavery, and dividing Africa into pieces, in capturing African people to across the oceans and things. This is how the whole thing was born, and this is how it continues to be maintained. Like if you look at right now, the number of Africans from Nigeria, South Africa, all sorts of places that go to the US and go to Europe to become doctors, engineers, and including actually those that have been there for the last 400 years. This is African intelligence, African skills, African labor that continues to be stolen from us. And all we are saying is that we want to take that back, and actually we are taking it back. So the work that's being done here in Africa is consistent with that. It's just consistent with the whole purpose of the African People's Socialist Party, why it was born in the first place, why it was founded in 1972 by Chairman Omali Yeshitela. And I want to say that right now, I don't know if you're aware of this, on the 15th of February, which is like this, a couple of days ago, the Africa Union officially declared colonialism, slavery, and forced deportations as crime against humanity. This organization has been there for a long time. Actually, it's from the OAU, 1963, and you'd be shocked that it's only now that they are declaring this to be a crime against humanity. So what were they doing? What was their assumption the whole time? And we've said this, for the last 50 years since Chairman Omali Yeshitela became active as a revolutionary, that the primary contradiction in terms of this whole social system is colonialism. So in Africa right now, we know that to overturn that, we have to build a revolutionary movement. And right now in South Africa, occupied Azania, where I am, we are building the African People's Socialist Party. We are building even its main mass organization, the International People's Democratic Uhuru Movement. And we're doing the same in Namibia. We're doing the same in Zambia, in West Africa, Sierra Leone, in as you can see from the pictures, those are comrades in Sierra Leone, and we're doing that in Nigeria. We're doing that in Ghana, in Liberia. Even now, we are now extending ourselves even to North Africa, in South Sudan. Soon you're gonna be seeing comrades in South Sudan, showcasing our work over there in South Sudan. And we are taking this whole system and project from all sorts of angles, or all sorts of fronts. Even from the economic front, we have established a kawash here. We have a kawash institution, and there are other projects that will be coming through. And we also have a farm, in Mpumalanga, under the leadership of Comrade Zakele Mkonza. And this is consistent with the struggle for land. Malcolm X said it, African Martyr, that if it's not about land, then it's not about revolution, because revolution is all about land. So yeah, so across the African continent, and in different or various African communities, African workers from the ground have access to political education. They're able to access African internationalism, and apply it in terms of solving problems on the ground. Like whenever we respond to an action, like you could see there, we're at a protest. And when we go to a protest, we don't just go there to protest that specific issue and leave it at that. We protest, but then when we do that, we tie the question to the entire social system that oppresses African people, because wherever we are faced with these challenges as Africans. It could be water, it could be electricity, it could be housing, it could be poverty in general. But then, we cannot assume that these are just isolated cases, or maybe coincidences. But these are, symptoms of the entire social system that was born from the attack on Africa. So African workers in the townships are able to access this political education in the form of African internationalism. And they know that wherever the Uhuru movement is, it's not going to simply be a matter of talking about how much such and such a politician stole, because this part, a politician can steal money from maybe the ANC, and then you replace that politician with another politician who's gonna steal money. Here, like if I may just go beyond the communities, there was a protest or a campaign against Jacob Zuma a while ago, and then they said Zuma must go, and then we said, who should replace Jacob Zuma? Who should replace him? And then Ramaphosa came, who's a billionaire, and and then some people said just because he has a lot of money, he's not gonna steal. And now he was caught with US dollars in his mattress and couches, so it's still the same thing. It's neocolonialism. So we have to raise the African working class to take power, take matters into our own hands, to solve these problems everywhere from Cape to Cairo, Morocco to Madagascar, throughout the African continent and beyond, because the African nation is dispersed. So that's what we do. And with this African internationalism, we are able to respond to immediate issues, such as you can see from the picture here, dealing with the question of waste, because there is poor or no service delivery in the community. So people end up just throwing trash all over the place in these open spaces. They even get a name called dump sites. Dump sites, but they are not really dump sites. You cannot have a dump site just uh, in the midst of where people live, where they have their houses. Like here, that's a school. That's next to a school where, like, as the Uhuru movement, you cannot have trash next to a school, and students in class, they are looking at this waste there, affecting them mentally. They are, inhaling all the smell there. So we said, let's deal with this issue, and then we got rid of the trash. So we do that everywhere. So if there is a question around food security, we make sure that we're going to have a farm there, and African workers can be able to produce for ourselves. If there's a question around waste, we deal with that. And this is revolutionary. It's not some type of just a pure NGO charity type of work. It is African workers taking power into our own hands. Because as soon as we do this, like here, Comrade Vuyani and Asa in another branch at Everton, they are patching the streets, the potholes there. They are very bad. The worst potholes in South Africa. I've been in different places on this, South Africa, but I haven't seen worse potholes like they have over there, and they are patching them. But then they are not just patching them, as a matter of just dealing with those potholes, because if we solve the matter of potholes, it won't solve, the question of colonialism. The question of colonialism will be solved by African state, black power state, in the hands of the African working class, state power in the hands of the African working class. So we are just preparing ourselves. Even when we have the kawash, we have the kawash in terms of just being able to handle our own economic affairs, building our own industry, knowing how to manage the finances. So one of the things that we talk about is don't assume that just because it's a kawash, we don't have to account for every cent. We have to account for every cent, record everything, because if you're in government and then you cannot account for certain funds, nobody's going to trust you. You're just going to end up being like the neo-colonialists that we have right now. So we take ourselves seriously, even, in the from the level that we are at of organization on the ground. Uhuru.
Uhuru, Director Tafarie, this is incredible. I know we're just witnessing a glimpse of, the practical work that the party is doing right there on the ground. And when we talk about, African Martyrs Day and the fact that, the whole colonial mode of production and the imperialist violence that we have experienced, our freedom fighters have experienced, that they have not been able to snuff out, the African Revolution. And it is there rooted materially on the continent, the home front. That's where the final battle and the final blow will be delivered. So very, very powerful. And I know you mentioned Comrade Zakele. I wanted to also, shout this brother out. Also, Comrade Asa, and this is Comrade Asa, right there on the front lines there. I know these are some stalwarts there on the continent, and I believe this is African Liberation Day in occupied Azania. So just Uhuru, and salute your leadership. And I know that we have, listeners and viewers across the world. This is One Africa Worldview. We're uniting the African nation under the theory of African internationalism. And for our comrades and brothers and sisters who are tuning in or who listen to us from the continent, we just wanted to be able to provide information about how the people can connect with the party on the ground there.
Uhuru, thank you, comrade. Yes, I think the most accessible means that most people have is Facebook, right? They got Facebook. I know that here, even in the townships, most people don't have email, but even if they do have email, they forget their passwords because no one is gonna send them an email, right? And unless maybe it's a job, and then you get a job once in a while, if you are lucky anyway. So, but on Facebook we are there. It's the African People's Socialist Party, um, Africa region, the African People's Socialist Party Africa region. But then also, if you go to the APSP Uhuru.org, you are able to send your message there, and state what you're inquiring on. And if you're inquiring on Africa, you can just write a message there. Or if you want to join the African People's Socialist Party, you go there, apspuhuru.org, and then you complete the 1, 2, 3 contact form, and then we'll get in touch with you. But then you can also send us an email, of course. We have Uhuru Azania 123 at gmail.com. Uhuru Azania 123 at gmail.com. You can send us an email there, or maybe you can also contact us on WhatsApp. It's +27, which is this code in South Africa, +27 66 376 3647 27 27 +27 66 37 4736 47. I hope I got it right. That's my phone number, by the way. I'm not good with numbers, but you should be able to get us in one of those ways, and then I will get back to you, comrades. Uhuru.
Uhuru, Director Tafarie. Well, you heard it, comrades. You know how to get in touch. And of course, you can follow the One Africa Worldview podcast, leave your comments, connect with us, and we can certainly get you connected, with what's happening right there on the continent. And, we're saying organizing every square inch, of the African continent. And we're not bound by these colonially imposed borders. We are one Africa, one nation.
One nation.
Yes, Uhuru. Thank you so much, Director Tafarie, for joining our show, One Africa Worldview. And we look forward to having you and other guests from the African People's Socialist Party Africa region, on our show, continuing to get those reports, those incredible articles and write-ups about things happening there, And yes, just forward to the African Revolution and victory to the Africa front of the African
I just
Revolution.
want to say, Comrade Director Akile, I'm a fan of this program. You know, want to salute you, Comrade, and the entire team, Comrade Soliana, Comrade Mariah. You know, I always make sure that I tune in and, you know, just like exciting and insightful engagements all the time. Uhuru.
Uhuru. Oh, we love to hear that. So, comrades, we have actual,
Right,
that was not a paid for uh
right.
review of our show. So that was actual feedback, guys. So thank you so much, Dr. Tafarie. Again, we look forward to having you on in the future. And I'm going to pass it back to my co-host, Comrade Dr. Mariah and Comrade Soliana. Uhuru.
Uhuru.
Wow, here that is such a powerful video, y'all. Such a powerful interview there with our very own director, Akile, our beautiful co-host there that you do recognize from One Africa Worldview, and director Tafari there. Just so powerful to see all of the things that the movement has going on. And it's just so really so great, y'all, to be able to showcase what the parties work to win the masses of African workers, political life, y'all, cross all borders. As you can see here, you see the work going on here. And what's even more important is just it's a way to really commemorate our fallen soldiers, y'all, and our comrades like Malcolm X, as we mentioned, Assata Shakur, Marcus Garvey, and Harriet Tubman. All they did not die in vain, y'all. And it's just so powerful. And their commitment and sacrifices live on in our work to complete the African Revolution and just capturing the freedom in our lifetime. So, with that, it's time to dig into our For the Culture segment where we are looking at America's Next Top Model documentary this week. So, Comrade Ciliana, why don't you kick us off with that?
Uhuru, yes, my pleasure. Thank you so much for summing up that interview. I was very much a fan as well. But yeah, so for our culture, for the culture, Netflix recently released a 3-episode documentary about the cultural phenomenon that was America's Next Top Model show that aired between the years 2003 and 2018. Now, I'm sure we're all at least semi-familiar with the show, if not avid watchers of it while it was airing. But for those of us who have no conception of such a show, which I don't blame you, America's Next Top Model was a brainchild of the supermodel Tyra Banks. Now, she was its host and one of its executive directors. And the whole premise of the show was to, show the behind the scenes of what women go through to become models, the hectic journey, as well as the insane beauty standards that women are expected to meet to be marketable to the larger public in order to sell whatever it is they're intended to sell, right? So that was the premise. Now, to hear Tyra tell it in this documentary, the show is not only supposed to show the behind the scenes action of the modeling world, but also challenge the beauty standards that have made modeling almost inaccessible to Black women models, particularly. And based on some of the contestants she ends up picking for the show, this does ring true, right? She picks some very gorgeous African women to showcase our beauty, but of course, it is a far cry from the Black is Beautiful movement that was spearheaded by Kwame Brathwaite, right? But that was her attempt. But watching the show in modern times, Tyra has come under a lot of heavy criticism from social media users, accused of subjecting the girls to the very same standards that she says that she's trying to challenge. And if you watch the show, it's not a really crazy accusation to make. It's very clear how it comes through. And some of the more outrageous scenes include when she forces Danielle, one of the models, to close the gap between her two front teeth because it's quote unquote unmarketable, only to end up having another girl, a white girl no less, from another cycle in the show, widen the gap between her teeth because somehow it looks iconic on her, right? And mind you, the gap is a sign of beauty in Africa, right? So that was one glaring example. But the show degrades, humiliates, and perpetuates colonial beauty standards against the contestants, most of whom saw the opportunity as one to rescue them from conditions of poverty and oppression. It was a show that was deliberately marketed to young women, and many of the contestants revealed they actually engaged in more self-harm and eating disorders while participating on the show, right? Like the aesthetic was heroin chic, like looking very skinny and like bare bones, and it was insane. But drama was created and pots were stirred to make for better television, regardless of the exploitation of these women. For instance, a woman named Shandy was followed and filmed while cheating on her partner, right? And then the film crew captured all of the intimate moments and then pushed her to call her partner and inform him of what happened. And despite her pleas to stop filming, Tyra and her producers kind of forced her to relive the memory on the screen. And then as a result, she says that, Shandy says she was subjected to verbal assault from strangers upon leaving the show. So this followed her throughout her life, right? But Tyra Banks, right, who was a victim of some of the same contradictions, doesn't really create the platform that protects and prepares these women, despite whatever she actually says. And she takes advantage of them for her own personal gain, right? So she sort of perpetuates this. So as a consequence, Banks amassed a fortune with America's Next Top Model, while the women who thought they were kickstarting their modeling careers actually never saw the success that they were promised, including the winners, right? The entire premise of the show. And so it was revealed in Danielle's testimony, the girl that had her, teeth pushed together. In her testimony, she was iced out of the modeling world because of a stigma regarding reality television stars. And her own agency ended up sabotaging her career because they didn't want to work with a reality TV contestant, right? She was sort of like unmarketable for them and hard to work with because of her status as a reality TV star. But some of the criticism was in regards to the, photo shoot themes themselves, right? Like white women in blackface portrayed as victims of violence and abuse, romanticizing eating disorders, right? Like the creative direction of these shoots and the modeling challenges, if you can call them that, all came under heavy scrutiny, and rightfully so, because you're basically saying, like, let's do blackface for this challenge, And so one of the most famous scenes of the show, which has been reproduced countless times on social media, is of course the scene where Tyra Banks shouts at the contestant Tiffany Richardson, who resisted one of the show's many humiliation rituals. And Tiffany was basically eliminated for her refusal to perform. And when Tyra didn't receive the same hysterics and apologies that she was expecting, she began to scream and berate Tiffany. And Tyra claims that she had such an explosive reaction because she quote unquote saw herself in Tiffany. But show staff and Tiffany herself have called BS on this, and they've indicated that far more was said that wasn't included in post-production, which was very convenient for Tyra, because I'm sure that it would, really tell the true story of it. And other parts of the documentary, of course, detailed the rifts that happened, that developed over the course of the show between some of its main actors, particularly the judges. So we have Jay Emanuel, Miss J. Alexander, and Nigel Barker. But all in all, it's sort of a bounce house of avoiding accountability, right? Tyra justifies herself and the show by repeatedly saying that the show was appropriate for its time, right? Everyone was, thinking like this. We just reflected that. And that, she kind of says that everyone has stuff that they have to own up to. And this is just, the thing that I have to, do. And so, but it's clear that, this defensive documentary was sort of an attempt by Tyra to sort of clear her name, which is really convenient because it's just in time for her to promote a whole new cycle of the show, which we should have seen coming. We should have seen that coming. But for those who saw the documentary and also followed the show in its heyday, there's many more scenes that we can mention in the show. But, if you guys have hot takes that you want us to, put up on the screen, let us know what you thought. Before we, wrap up this section, Carmen Mariah, what were your general reactions? What was your 2 cents watching this? Did you watch it when it was airing? Anything you want to close us out with?
Yeah. So, well, I may have seen an episode or 2 or maybe the whole series, but when it comes to that, it was the show. And it was television when television was a thing there. So, and it was reality TV actually, whenever reality TV was at its peak, and they were trying to mix this whole real world thing mixed with the American Idol, voting you off the type of show type of thing there. So that was the format. And we all know that now, after the success of the Real Housewives, we've seen Love and Hip Hop series there. We've seen the Kardashians, just all that stuff there that, we know reality TV is really not reality, and, it's actually production. So America's Next Top Model, it just had this really extraordinary platform. When it came to that, it was just really extraordinary contradictions also that occurred. And Tyra Banks, she was really trying to navigate all this. And it was just an industry that was built on, as you mentioned, colonial beauty standards, and just when that just riddled in anti-blackness, riddled in the blackface stuff that we discussed here, and just plain old black exploitation. So she did not really build that system, and we definitely have to highlight that. She came up in it. And in just many ways, we just see her trying to figure out how to navigate in real time in front of millions of people here. So, and let's be clear, that does not excuse anything, of course. It's just that the humiliation, the hurt, all the double standards, the forcing, as you mentioned, of Danielle Danny, as we know on the show, to close her gap while, just celebrating all when it comes to a white contestant. The emotional breakdowns we saw on the show, all that was used for ratings, y'all. And those moments, they're painful. And come on, they really reflected really of what colonial logic shows. Is that just claims that it wanted to challenge those same things, and it didn't. It built on it, and they made money off of it. So here is the deeper issue, and let's look at it wasn't about Tyra, y'all. It's just Tyra wasn't going to tell too much, of course, because at the end of the day, Tyra is actually the producer of this documentary. So when it comes to just her brand, it's locked. It's locked in its own point. But this was about an industry, the industry that, it commodifies women, commodifies Black women mainly, and just really just gets it all the body and all the body images thing there. And it's the media. It's a media machine that really just profits from all of this. And that's really what I want to highlight. Profits from the trauma that these women went through. So Tyra, she became the face of it nonetheless, but she was also operating inside this whole corporate television sponsors, advertisers, and just network executives, all of that stuff that we see when it comes to that media. And that context definitely matters because that is where the colonialism lies. And we just want to say what struck me the most while watching the actual Netflix documentary is that how many of these young women were actually coming from poverty. They were coming from instability, just coming from a real struggle. And they saw this show as their doorway to success, their doorway to something different. And instead of the protection that they saw and we felt like they deserved, and any political clarity, any of that stuff, they were given this whole big spectacle. So for me, this is not just some simple villain story, and that's something that I do want to highlight. It's a huge lesson. And it's just something that we have to remember that representation without power, it does not mean liberation. So visibility without ownership, that also does not mean freedom, y'all. And challenging beauty standards requires more than just casting a few Black girls, some curvy women there, just anything of that sort. Requires dismantling the whole system, that whole system that defines beauty in the first place. So that is the conversation that we should be having here. And just look, if Tiffany, Danny, or any of you girls, or hell, even Tyra, if you're listening and you're watching, we would love to have a chat with you about this over here on One Africa Worldview. So get in touch with us, our team, and we would love to have you on the show here to have this deeper discussion, y'all. So like I said, that is a conversation we should be having. You hear it.
Right on. Well, thank you so much, Mariah, for those for that really great take. We do want to go ahead and wrap up the show, and I definitely want to shout out our comrade MQ, who came through with another $10 donation to BP96. So, like we said at the top of the show, you can still go ahead and donate to BP96 during February. So, yeah, I just wanted to shout the comrade out. But with that, Comrade Mariah, I want to wrap us up with the announcements.
Yeah, let's get into it. So yeah, on February 28th at 4 p.m. Eastern, y'all, Black Power 96 Radio will host the Turn Up Black Power 96 Radio DJs and other station volunteers will be live in the studio and behind the mics, turning up the volume during the station meet and greet. So come on down, meet your favorite DJs, local artists, and the volunteers who, along with the supporters like you, power Black Power 96 Radio. So it will be hosted at the station, which is located at 1245 18th Avenue South in St. Petersburg, Florida, y'all. And so you can RSVP at blackpower96.org/turnup. And this event is part of the Black Power 96 Radio February Fund Drive that has a goal to raise $12,000 to fund a new transmitter for the station and station operating expenses, y'all. And also on February 28th, beginning at 1 p.m. Pacific, the International People's Democratic Uhuru Movement, InPDUM, presents African Martyrs Day, honoring our heroes and martyrs at the historic Oakland Uhuru House, located at 7911 MacArthur Boulevard in Oakland, California. And this is a free event where food and refreshments will be served, and you can view the last speeches of Huey P. Newton and clips of H. Rap Brown and hear from a panel of local movement leaders, which includes many that are there from the Uhuru Movement, APSP organizations, and the Burning Spear newspaper. We will have it all there, and you can join right there on February 28th at 1 p.m. Pacific time. And you can join the African People's Socialist Party in St. Louis, Missouri, April 17th through the 19th for the 2026 International Plenary theme. This time, till it's won, power in our own hands. It's not just Trump. it's the whole damn system. And this is the planning forum we will use to deepen our organization, enhance our organizing, and lead the African working class beyond spontaneous protests to capture of actual dual and contending power, y'all. And this is a place for all freedom-loving people. So come on out and you determine to have a new world free of oppression and exploitation. Join us right there on April 17th through 19th. And to take part in this changing the world, you can register today at apspplenary.org. That's apspplenary.org. So, yeah, y'all, for all of our events and everything else we got going on, you can visit theburningspear.com/events. And of course, we'll be keeping you updated right here on One Africa Worldview. And so make sure you subscribe, you're locked in to any of our socials so we can make sure we keep you updated.
That's right. And thank you once again to all of our viewers, supporters, listeners, donators, and special thanks to our donators who, helped BP96. And of course, make sure to grab your very own February 2026 issue of The Burning Spear. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel to never miss an episode of the One Africa Worldview. We stream on the Burning Spear TV, Burning Spear Media Rumble, Black Power 96 FM radio based in St. Pete, and streaming globally on the Black Power 96 FM app. So with that, we'll see you all next week. One Africa, One Nation.
One nation.